Welcome back to Elite Sports Talk. Today is June 10th, 2026. I just want to say, like always, to start the show, thank you guys, anybody that views this. And remember, you can always view on Rumble and YouTube, live streaming right now on Kick and Twitch. I'm also trying to work out the kinks with setting up how to also live stream on both YouTube and TikTok as well. So on today's show, we're going to run down NBA offseason. We're going to go through NHL offseason. I really only have two things when it comes to the NHL offseason. NBA Finals, obviously, Stanley Cup Finals. If we get to it, if we have enough time, we're going to go down a couple of things with the NFL offseason. And then obviously we'll end the show with my NBA and NHL picks going forward. So we're going to go first to some NBA offseason. Yes, so again, right now, the top thing really in the NBA offseason, other than maybe like what's going to happen with LeBron, nobody really thinks he's going to hang it up. But, you know, other than that, I would say probably the top storyline is everything that's going on in Milwaukee with Giannis. And, you know, it's weird because I was just going to go through my insights of what I thought, but then this actually came up on my phone about 15 minutes ago. So now, obviously, there's a growing expectation throughout the NBA that the Bucks will trade Giannis Antetokounmpo before the NBA draft on June 23rd to the 24th. And so now we have Jimmy Haslam, the Bucks co-owner. He just confirmed that the front office expects a definitive resolution, either a long-term contract extension or a blockbuster trade prior to the draft. Again, today is the 10th of June, so we're talking within the next 2 weeks, because Giannis has only one guaranteed season remaining on his contract before a $62.8 million player option for the 27-28 season. He holds, obviously, an immensely leverage in dictating where he wants to go. And the teams that everybody's been talking about, Miami, New York, Boston. So this one was intriguing. I seen this the other day, and I wanted to live stream and record yesterday. I was trying to add a guest, and like I've said before, this is a one-man show, so I've done everything on my own. I'm handling all my social media accounts for Elite Sports Talk. I'm doing all the recording on my own, and it's a lot coming from a person like me who never really was a tech guy, didn't really use computers and stuff for much except to look up sports stats in the past. So it didn't work out, obviously, which is why I'm doing it today. So I got to figure that out. But anyway, so I seen this a couple of days ago with the Portland Trail Blazers, that's named as the second team that's actively in the mix right now over the Knicks. So they're saying that either Miami or Portland are kind of the favorites right now for Giannis. And Portland owns much of Milwaukee's long-term draft capital from the 2023 Damian Lillard trade. The Bucks are highly motivated to involve them either directly or as a third team to recoup the future draft picks ahead of a post-Giannis rebuild. So again, I mean, I feel like turn the NBA world upside down. Portland hasn't been relevant in years. This year, obviously, they ended up getting Lillard back. Lillard could not play from that injury that happened in the playoffs last year, Achilles or whatever it was when he went down. So he had to sit out the entirety of the season. Portland actually played pretty dang well this year. They have a really good mix of veterans and younger guys. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like this would make so much sense, because of, I don't know who they would have to give up in a trade scenario, but like with the roster as is, which it obviously would not remain that way if Giannis went there, they would be trading some pieces along with probably draft capital or whatever they're going to do. But they have Drew Holiday, great veteran. Lillard already has chemistry from playing a little bit with Giannis. I don't want to say a little bit. It was the entirety of the season, really, I think, is, I don't think they really were missing much time during the season. But it was in the postseason when he got hurt. So, yeah, they already have somewhat of a rapport there between the two of them. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that Thiago Splitter, the head coach, would love to bring Giannis aboard. So, yeah, that's pretty much, I think, all I got right now. Because, like, the other thing that I was thinking about when it comes to Giannis was teams that really haven't been named as, like I just said, the top 4 teams really are Boston, New York, Portland, it looks like all of a sudden, and Miami. So now I'm going to go to the Atlanta Hawks. So recently, if you did not hear, the Atlanta Hawks and head coach Quinn Snyder have agreed to a multi-year extension. I don't know that they already posted the details, how many years, how much money, stuff like that. This marks consecutive extensions by Hawks ownership, Snyder, and Saleh to solidify organizational continuity. Saleh was promoted to president of basketball operations from general manager on May 27th and signed a long-term extension. Now, Snyder has been with the Hawks since 2022-23. And this year, it was crazy because, trading away Kristaps Porzingis, which he didn't really play a lot for them anyway, probably a handful of games. He was hurt, and they had just gotten him anyway. Trae Young has been, kind of injury-prone the last couple of seasons now. He had sat out a large portion, if not the entire season, I believe, this year, prior to him getting traded to Washington. But without these guys, Snyder he guided the Hawks to a 46-36 record before losing in the first round to the New York Knicks in 6 games. And you got to remember, the Hawks actually beat New York twice in that series. So, and I think it was a tied series. I was going to say I think they were up 2-0. They may have been, actually. I think they were either up 2-0 or 2-1 over the Knicks. And we see where the Knicks are now. So with Atlanta not having top-tier superstar talent, Quinn Snyder, obviously, this is the reason why they gave him this extension. He had these guys playing great. With, a decent amount of talent. I'm not saying they don't have anybody. They do. It's just they don't have, some of these top guys in the league. Their top players right now would be N'Keal Alexander-Walker and Dyson Daniels. And they have their center is very good, too. I can't remember who their center is. I can't remember his name. But Onyeka... no, I think I'm mixing sports here. But they do have talent, anyhow, which is why they got where they got. They also brought in, that's right, they brought in C.J. McCollum, Corey Crispert, and that was, I think, a part of trading away Trae Young to Washington. That was back in January. They ended up winning 19 of their last 24 games to end the regular season. And has been, up until the other night, which we will get to in a little bit, had been the only team that actually gave the Knicks a loss. Actually multiple losses, like I said. So, there's a bright future. And hopefully for Atlanta fans, an immediate bright future for them going forward into next season. So, also, let's take a little look at the Philadelphia 76ers, which I believe this is also going to be one of the top storylines of the NBA offseason. What are they going to be doing with their roster going forward? Because I brought this up before a couple episodes ago, but if you don't know, right now they are actually the only NBA team in the league to have 3 players that are all going to be making 40 plus million in annual salary. With that being Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Joel Embiid, of course. And you know, they can't seem to get it done. They keep coming up short. Embiid he's always injured, we know this, but when he came back, I was probably one of the only people that called it, that thought that they had a shot if Embiid was healthy against the Boston Celtics. And to a lot of people's surprise, not mine, they did beat the Boston Celtics. And, really, they just were kind of outmatched against the New York Knicks, which is why, they did have opportunities to get 1 or 2 wins. They fell short, obviously. The Knicks swept them in 4, and so that's what's making them scratch their heads and think, like, what are we going to do going forward? They obviously fired their general manager and already hired another guy. So now they have to figure out this salary cap going forward. And you would think that if they don't trade both Embiid and PG, I would think at least one of those two are going to leave. They have another guy now, obviously, as we've seen in this rookie, who played much like a veteran in VJ Edgecombe to pair with Tyrese Maxey. So, I think just because of the amount of money that they're paying Embiid, even though he has been injury prone each and every year of his career, seemingly, I think that they may actually wind up keeping Embiid and probably get rid of Paul George. Paul George served like a 20-something game suspension or whatever for something stupid, but I mean, he was also had been known as injury prone in his career. I think he played pretty decent for them, although they were expecting him to have a higher level to his gameplay, and they just didn't really see that. So, like I said, my opinion on that, I think that PG will probably end up going. If I was the GM, if I was there, just because of the money that they're going to owe Embiid, I think you kind of have to keep him. But yeah, I think that everybody, Philly fans included, would probably rather them go and part ways with Embiid over Paul George and try to find another really, really good center to replace Embiid. I mean, you're not going to find a lot of guys out there that can replace the type of on-court play and stats that Embiid will give you on a night-in and night-out basis when healthy, although he's never that healthy and he never plays night-in and night-out. So, yeah. And lastly, for the NBA offseason here, should the Denver Nuggets make drastic changes to the roster, and how does this affect Jokic's pending deal with the team's ability to bring other people in? So, I don't think that Jokic is, not that he would turn down for nothing, a max contract in his situation, but he has said it before, he wants to be the Steph Curry for Denver. He does not want to leave Denver. He wants to be there. So the problem lies with, I still did, even to this point, Cam Johnson played very well, especially down the stretch for Denver and even in the playoffs. But I still wish that there would have been some way, somehow, that they would have been able to retain Michael Porter Jr. But I get it. I understand. They were able to replace him with Bruce Brown, Cam Johnson, and really, I think it ended up being like 4 players that replaced his salary. So it made it worthwhile for Denver to do that and make that move. But now I'm seeing things, graphics and stuff on the internet like, should Denver trade Cam Johnson? Should they trade Christian Brown? I don't think they should really trade either one of them, but they have to do something in order to capitalize on, the time that they're going to have left with Jokic, which you would think he would probably play for another 7 to 8 years, maybe more. But I don't see him playing into his 40s like LeBron. A lot of guys don't do that anyway. But yeah, so I'm not really sure what's going to happen here. I think that the odd man out may be AG at this point, given the fact that that hamstring injury now has cost the Denver Nuggets 2 consecutive years in the playoffs. You got to think that they would have been able to overcome the Timberwolves for the first time in the past 3 different years that we've played them, had AG have been healthy. But he was still dealing with that hamstring all the way from last season's playoffs when, again, I've been loud about this. I've said this time and time again. The Oklahoma City Thunder were an Aaron Gordon hamstring away from being knocked out of the playoffs to the Denver Nuggets and would not have been the eventual champs last season. So, something's going to have to be done there, and only time will tell. But in my opinion, I think that they need to keep Murray. And if somebody's going to be on the outside looking in and they're trying to get the most they can for a large salary, I would probably say Aaron Gordon may be the guy that's out come October. Now we're going to get into, I got a couple of things for the NHL offseason here. So, I don't know if you know it or not, but right now there's a situation brewing in Detroit. Dylan Larkin, who is their captain, he wants out, and, for good reason. They made some moves in the offseason. One of the things they did last year before the trade deadline hit was they went out and got a veteran goaltender. Still, in my opinion, though I guess I'm a little biased here because he used to play for my favorite team, the Anaheim Ducks, but John Gibson had been known as one of the better goaltenders for like the past decade, and that was one move that they felt was going to, maybe put them over the top here. And down the stretch this season, Detroit was still very much in the mix for the playoffs. And it did not turn out that way. Obviously, we've seen Ottawa propelled themselves in as one of the wild cards. There was like 5 or 6 teams there, really, that were battling, that were jockeying for position with Washington and Philly and Detroit, and I can't remember. There was a couple of teams there, but obviously Ottawa was one of the teams that made it in. Philly went from not making the playoffs, not to just wild card, but actually getting second or third, I believe, in their division, which is why they ended up playing Pittsburgh. So yeah, with Detroit not making it, I get it. Dylan Larkin wants to try to do what he can to win now. So he has given the Red Wings a list of 3 specific teams that he would like to be traded to, and that he would be willing to waive his no trade clause to join. Those 3 teams are Minnesota Wild, which, yeah, they've been each and every year, they've been getting closer and closer to a shot at the cup. And Florida Panthers, for good reason, obviously, the last 3 years they have been in the Stanley Cup. This year was a bit of a down year, but it wasn't really about the gameplay. It was more so about costly injuries. All their top talented guys had been suffering long-term injuries this year, which is why they did not make the playoffs. And then the last team is, by no surprise, the Vegas Golden Knights, who we are seeing live in real time, how great they are. And that would make sense too. And I think that, so first, let me just run down all this. So Dylan Larkin's full no-trade clause gives him leverage, just like with the Giannis situation. His massive contract makes fitment challenging. He has 5 years remaining on an 8-year deal that carries an $8.7 million average annual value. Because his wish list is tightly locked to just 3 ready-made contenders, the salary cap, logistics, and potential trade packages vary significantly by team. The Florida Panthers, they have more than $15 million in projected space, which is crazy to think about it. When you look at the roster that they have, they got some of the best guys in the NHL right now. So I know, Sam Bennett, Sam Reinhart, Matthew Tkachuk, obviously, guy from Boston. I can't think of his name. One of the better scorers in the league right now, who just actually had his record passed in the Stanley Cup Finals, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, they have a lot, and then they also have that goalie, who's one of the better goalies in the league. So while they have the raw room to absorb Larkin's 8.7 cap hit, their long-term structure is top heavy. They already pay 5 core forwards $7 million or more per year. Fitting Larkin might mean letting unrestricted free agent goaltender that I was just stating about, one of the better goaltenders, Sergei Bobrovsky, to walk in favor of a cheaper alternative. Trade assets. Analysts widely agree that Florida is asset poor in future draft picks and top prospects. To pry Larkin from a division rival, they would likely have to package a first-round pick alongside a stellar young center like Antoine Lundell to make money and personal value balance out for Detroit. Minnesota Wild, as I said, that's another team. The Wild have arguably the cleanest financial pathway to bring Larkin into their top 6, though they have back-end budgeting to project. Cap space status, roughly $12.8 million in available breathing room. This is more than enough to acquire Larkin outright without a dollar-to-dollar salary dump. However, Minnesota must manage this space carefully, as their long-term financial planning heavily weighs a future mega extension for defenseman Quinn Hughes. They also possess a deeper cupboard of traditional trade pieces than Florida. They have future first-round draft picks and a strong pipeline of young talent that could satisfy Red Wings GM Steve Yzerman. And then the Golden Knights. They only have about $4.6 million, if this is correct, in projected space. Vegas is a severe cap crunch and cannot simply just add Larkin. They must move money out. Some of their primary trade assets, because of their cap situation, their trade assets double as contract dumps. Vegas would likely look to trade Tomas Hertl. He has 3 years left at just $8 million per season. The final year of William Karlsson's contract, $5.9 million, to offset Larkin's hit. From a futures perspective, they would have to lean on their short list, of top prospects like Trevor Connolly or a distant first-round draft pick in 2028 or 2029. So, with all that being said, I think Florida would actually probably make the most sense, and it seems as though they have the most salary cap available to them to do so. Tomas Hertl was actually benched at one point in the postseason because of his gameplay, but then obviously we've seen he started to do a little bit better. But that's what I would say right now. I would say maybe Florida would make the most sense. They're the only 3 teams that he has on his list. If he wanted to expand that list, I mean, hey, there's an up-and-coming team in Anaheim that could use him, and I don't think that he would. I don't think that he wouldn't really want to be a part of that talented roster. Montreal would also be very good fit, I believe, in my opinion. Maybe the Philadelphia Flyers. All 3 of these teams are on the upswing right now and have bright immediate futures. And then the other question is, is Edmonton's window closing for them to win a Stanley Cup? And should Edmonton and McDavid part ways, and what team would present the best opportunity for him to win now rather than later? Well, the best opportunity for him to win now rather than later, if you're not even considering salary cap, would probably be those same three teams, if not maybe extract Minnesota, but Vegas, Florida, and then maybe the other three teams that I just mentioned, just because of how their rosters are built and how much success they're having with a young core of guys here. Maybe Colorado would be another one that would make sense. Again, I don't really know much about the salary cap per team here, but I think any of those places would be really great destinations for both him and for those teams. But in all honesty, I kind of hope that he remains with Edmonton, remains with Leon Draisaitl, because that's one of the best two-man games in the sport of hockey right now today. They had a rough season. They got rid of both of their goaltenders. Actually, I think Calvin Pickard, they just downgraded him to the underleague or an emergency goalie maybe. And then obviously Skinner ended up getting traded for Jari, from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh and Edmonton swapped goalies there. They both thought it would help them out, and I feel as though it didn't help either team out, that much. But if anything, I would say maybe Skinner helped Pittsburgh out a little bit more, just because they got into the playoffs, they got further. Or no, you know what? I think it was the first round that they both lost. So, yeah, no, it didn't really significantly do much for either team. But yeah, so that's all I'm going to have right now for NHL offseason. Now let's get to the hardwood for the NBA Finals. So, as the graphic just showed, first two games of the series, Knicks stole both games out in San Antonio. And then after almost 2 months, they finally lost a game. It was at home. First time since April 23rd that the Knicks lost. The streets of New York went pretty crazy. People were fighting, Knicks fans were fighting San Antonio Spurs fans. And, with that being said, tonight is going to be game 4, still at MSG, obviously. And, just to let people know as a stat here, I don't know if people know, but if San Antonio were to win tonight in New York, this would be the first time in NBA history that the first 4 games of an NBA Finals series were won by the road team. So that would be crazy if that happens. I'll make my pick later on the show to let you guys know how I feel about that, and if that stat can come to fruition. How can the Spurs get back into the series, meaning tie the series up? Who other than Wemby needs to have the biggest game in game 4? I want to say De'Aaron Fox. I think Fox needs to have, a huge game for them to be able to offset everything that's happening on the other side. We know Brunson's going to come to play night in and night out. Pretty much OG Anunoby throughout, not just right now through this series, but really probably throughout the entire playoffs, has been one of the best guys, on any team. Cat, a little bit up and down. The first 2 games, he was very good. One was better than the other. I believe game 2, he was phenomenal. Game 1, I think he was a little, he had the numbers. But game 3, yeah, he didn't really get a whole lot here. So when you look at the box score, Karl Towns almost had a double-double, but he had 11 points, 8 boards, 1 assist. He was 4-10 from the floor, 0-2 from 3. He made all 3 of his free throws. He had 3 steals, 2 blocks. He was a +6, responsible for 25 points. Jalen Brunson, again, we know he's going to come. He's going to bring it each and every night. He had the ball a lot in this game. He wasn't getting a whole lot of help outside of OG Anunoby. 32, 5 and 5. Not great, in terms of efficiency. He was 11 of 25 from the floor, under 50%, obviously. 3-point, he was 3 of 5. That's 40. 60%. That's very good. 7 of 8 free throw. And OG, 28, 5 and 1. Josh Hart, 16, 9 and 5. Mikal Bridges did not come to play. 2, 5 and 2. They did also have huge help off the bench from Clarkson with 10 points. He knocked down one. He had 2 great plays. Probably underrated plays in this game, even though the outcome remained they did not win. But Clarkson had a 3 where he didn't even really look like he was set. And there was 2 guys that were right on the perimeter that looked like they were closing in on him, and he knocked it down. Didn't even hit the rim, I don't believe. I think it just went right in, hit the net. And then there was another play later where I believe the Knicks were trying to get it back to a tied game, or maybe they were down by a couple of buckets at that point. But he drove in the lane, he jumped up, and honestly, I feel like this is just great basketball IQ because, he goes up, and I think he kind of knew the way that he went up. He was only a couple feet out from the rim, but when he went up, he already kind of knew in his head and already had planned, like, it's going to go to the right? There was so many guys in the lane, and he out-rebounded all of them. He shot it, he went over to the right, and as soon as it came out, he was right there and put it right back in, and that was exactly what the Knicks needed, especially when Bridges isn't on. Alvarado got 4 points. Shamet had 3 points. Mitchell Robinson went 5 and 4, 5 points, 4 rebounds. So again, Clarkson was, the only real guy, the only real help coming off of the bench for them in this game. And with Karl Anthony Towns also having not, the best game, they really needed more, and Clarkson was trying to provide that. The outcome, they ended up losing by 4 points, 115 to 111. But in order for them to go up 3-1, I think that they're going to need to have a very big game again from OG Anunoby, but also Cat needs to get back on track here. But with the Spurs, De'Aaron Fox had 12 points. I think they need to get more out of De'Aaron Fox. Wemby is going to come to play. He had 32, 8 and 6, 11 of 18, 50%, 2 of 4 from 3. He was 8 of 9 from the free throw. Let's see what else here. Castle, 23, 5 and 5. Champagny had 12. Vassell had 11. And then Harper, obviously off the bench, 13, 9 and 4. So I think that De'Aaron Fox has to have an epic game in order for them to, given the fact that Castle and Wemby are both going to do what they normally do, I think he's going to be the guy. I think Fox has to get like a 20-plus point game here tonight. And if he does, then I expect that they will tie the series up and, go back home and then, have home court advantage again, reclaim that home court advantage. That would be huge. So now let's go ahead and get back to the ice so we can break down a little bit of the Stanley Cup Finals. Okay, so Now let's talk about going into last night. Prior to the game being played, Carolina Hurricanes head coach Rod Brind'Amour had made his decision on whether Frederik Andersen or Brandon Bussi would start in goal for Game 4, because this was the storyline, obviously, going in, because Frederik Andersen, as great as he had been in the NHL playoffs, minus that Game 1 against the Montreal Canadiens when he allowed 6 goals, he was playing the best, some of the best hockey of his career here. And that's going after, not playing that great in the 30-something games that he played in the regular season. But also, we didn't know, not just because he hadn't been playing great in the Stanley Cup so far, but also for the fact that he looked like he could have gotten hurt, right? There was a couple of times that Vegas interfered with him. One of the biggest one really was the second goal that Vegas thought they had scored that was called back. The first 2 were called back. The first one was offsides, but the second one was when they collapsed the net. They hit Frederik Andersen in the head. And so we were thinking like maybe that could have something to do with the outcome of whether Brind'Amour chooses to, let him sit out or keep him in the net. And you know how the NHL media is. It's not like the NBA or the NFL. They're not going to disclose injuries. They just don't do that. They don't do it for the media, for the press. They don't do it for anybody. So we don't really know what the reasoning was. But not only did Andersen not start, they didn't dress him as the backup. He was listed as the emergency goalie, which means they would have needed Brandon Bussi plus the backup to both get hurt before they even think about putting Andersen in net. That's huge, man. That was huge. Andersen had been the primary starter throughout the playoffs. He was pulled after the second period, after allowing 4 goals and only 14 shots. And then the backup, Brandon Bussi, actually did very good, stepping up and stopping 18 and 19 shots. So, so now the Hurricanes obviously lost their first game. When I'm talking about going back to Game 3, they lost. They had a unbelievable 6-0, undefeated in the overtime in the playoffs this year, right? And they won the first 6 overtime games postseason run, putting them in exclusive club as one of the few NHL teams in history to achieve such a streak. And the company they were in, because they were only the 3rd team to do this, the 2023 Florida Panthers, and believe it or not, I'm not just saying this, the 2003 Anaheim Ducks. So the 6-0 mark specifically carried them through a large chunk, obviously the Eastern Conference rounds, and into the Stanley Cup against the Golden Knights. The Hurricanes' flawless sudden death streak eventually came to an end, obviously, in Game 3. They were bested 5-4 in double overtime. So again, that says a lot, because that means Brandon Bussi held up, for quite some time here. He played, he only came in for the 3rd period, and then he played all the first overtime and held up great. And then in that second overtime, they ended up losing at that point. Golden Knights went up 2-1. But now, when you fast forward to last night, it ended up 5-3. Hurricanes won the game. But then, so a couple of things here. Because of the way that Brandon Bussi played, are the Hurricanes, is their best bet in net going forward going to be him over Andersen, even if Andersen is okay, has no injury? Maybe they also, because again, they're not going to say, but maybe he had some concussion symptoms after getting in the head. We don't know. But I want to run down the numbers here. So Andersen allowed, going back to when they pulled him in Game 3, He had allowed 12 goals in 3 games. That's 4 goals against allowed, right? And prior to that, his numbers were, I believe, 2.44 goals on average he was allowing. He stopped 18 of, Frederik Andersen had 32 goals against. This is total in the playoffs. 1.89 goals against in the playoffs alone. So it wasn't 2.44. That was for the entirety of the season, I believe. 1.89 goals against on 32 goals. Goals against average, 1.89, 32. .910 save percentage, because it was a total of 322 stops out of 354 shots on net. His record, 3-2. He had 3 shutouts. Obviously, they came in the other rounds. Round 1, he only allowed 5 goals in total to Ottawa. Round 2, Frederik Andersen only allowed 5 goals in total to the Philadelphia Flyers. Round 3, he allowed 10 goals to Montreal, but 6 again in that first game. So only 4 in the other 4. What was it? How many games did they play? 5 games. So only 4 goals total in the other 4 games. It's a goal per game, which is why it's a 1.89 goal against average when you look at his cumulative work here. In the Stanley Cup, though, again, he allowed 12 goals against Vegas in the first 3 games. So, again, that's why they switched it up. That's why they went to Brandon Bussi. And he, again, in the first game, he played the third period and then the whole overtime period, the whole third period, and then however many minutes it was, I forget when exactly Vegas ended up hitting the goal in the second overtime. But his save percentage, Brandon Bussi, 18 and 19, that's a 94.7% there. And then you look at the other side, because since Carolina did what they did and replaced Frederik Andersen, now, we have a stat coming out with the other side, with the Golden Knights, and now they're wondering, should we do the same thing, right? And to that, I would say, the stat that came out today, Carter Hart has now allowed 4 or more goals in each game of the Stanley Cup to this point. That's the first goalie in NHL history. 4 goals allowed, 23 of 27. That's a .852 save percentage. And again, so now they might be thinking, who knows? But that's what the media is saying, is that maybe they should think about also making a change, just like what their opposition did. Brandon Bussi last night, 3 goals against, 18 of 21, a .857. So in a total of, actually, I said 4 periods here, but really it was a total of 3, 4, 5. Third period, overtime, second overtime. So he played a total of 6 periods of hockey now for the Hurricanes, and he's only allowed 4 goals against 30. He saved 36 of 40 shots. That's, 900 save percentage here. So maybe they go ahead and see what Adin Hill can do, because if you don't know, Adin Hill is the backup goalie for the Vegas Golden Knights for Carter Hart. And he did win them a Stanley Cup 2022-2023 season. And I looked his stats up. He was 4-1. He allowed 2.36 goals against average, and his save percentage was a 92.3. So, maybe that is something that Torts thinks about heading into this game tomorrow night. We probably won't know until the last second. We did not know until game time last night that they were going to go ahead and switch out Frederik Andersen for Brandon Bussi. And like I said, not only did they just say, okay, Brandon Bussey, you're in net. They said, Frederick, you're not going to play at all whatsoever unless we lose our first 2 goaltenders. So that was pretty shocking that it went down like that. That's why I think, but we probably won't know until maybe months and months later, or not at all, if ever, whether or not he was held out also for the simple fact that he got hit in the head. He got banged up a little bit in that game, you know. But then to look at some of these other stats from last night, Jordan Staal became the oldest NHL player to score in all four Stanley Cup games. He had actually 2 goals last night, 4 shots on goal. Nicolas Ehlers led Carolina with assists with 2. The Golden Knights, Jack Eichel had 3 shots on goal, led them there, or no, he did not lead them there. He had 3 shots on goal. The leader was Mark Stone with 5 shots on goal. He had a goal as well. William Karlsson led them in points with 2, 1 goal, 1 assist, 1 shot on goal. And then we have Brett Howden, who's been a pest right now throughout the entire postseason. He has led all players with 14 goals in the postseason, and actually second on the list would be Logan Stankoven with 11 goals. And then when you go down to there's 2 guys in third place that both have 10 goals apiece, and I believe it's Dorofeev and dang, I forget the other one. And I just remembered, so Brad Marchand was the one who actually had the record for the oldest NHL player to score in all 4 of the first 4 Stanley Cup games prior to Jordan Staal, besting that record last night. And, so yeah, the last thing I got here with Stanley Cup are the Golden Knights too strong for Carolina's defense. Now, prior to last night, I would have said, yeah, probably, because it definitely seemed that way. But now, I'm not so sure. I think that Carolina leveled the playing field. I don't know if they're going to continue to keep Brandon Bussey in over Frederik Andersen. And, like I said, another question now that seems kind of reasonable is whether or not Carter Hart is going to remain in the net for Vegas as well. So yeah, we shall see. Obviously tonight is NBA, so game 4, so we won't really know much until we get closer to game 5 here for the NHL Stanley Cup. Now I'm going to go ahead and run down a few things in the NFL. So, first thing you've seen on the graphic there, what does the signing of L'Jarius Sneed mean for Kansas City's defense? Well, for one, he made a big name for himself in KC originally. A lot of familiarities with the defense there that they run in Kansas City and Steve Spagnuolo. And, their defense was very, very good a couple of seasons ago. Last year, it wasn't as great, so I think that bringing back Sneed, who was kind of like known to be like almost a lockdown type of a corner here, I think that would actually help the Chiefs in a big way, and it could also potentially help them defensively. Go back to playing a greater, limiting offenses a lot until Patrick Mahomes is 100%, which they're saying that he's going to play week 1, it looks like, as of right now. We still have time. People are saying he looks good in camp right now, in the offseason workouts and things like that. So, we'll have to see. But, yeah, I think that this may be an underrated signing in the offseason, which is why I wanted to bring that up. But I think that this is actually potentially huge for their defense right now. Will the injuries for the Giants be too much for them to overcome? We've seen they have lost 3 different receivers so far, if not more so. Odell Beckham is back to give them a helping hand. I don't know what he's going to do at this point in his career, if he can relive the magic from his younger years. And frankly, I don't really care. I think the Giants are going to be good regardless, with or without him. Isaiah Likely, Cam Scatterbo seems like he's coming along, and his ankle looks pretty strong as of right now. They have a lot of weapons really for Jackson Dart, and I don't know. I've been saying it. I was saying it last year too, that I thought the Giants were maybe closing in. The Giants and the Cowboys were going to be closing in on Philly. And with all the moves that the Giants have made in the offseason thus far, I think that they should be fine, bearing that they don't really have anybody else get hurt. The other day, it looked like Abdul Carter had suffered some type of injury, but now I believe it was Adam Schefter reporting that was saying that it looks like he will wind up being okay. So I don't think that the injuries are going to play a huge factor this year, but you know, with the overall brutality of the sport of football, you never know. People could end up going down in the next couple of months in the off-season training and camp. I mean, any given game, anything can happen. You really don't know. But I do want to say that I do think that they have a decent amount of depth at receiver, at tight end, at running back. So I think that offensively, they should be better than they were last year. Defense, you could say maybe took a little bit of a hit when they lost, their defensive tackle to the Cincinnati Bengals. But they have a decent amount of edge rushers, man. They just drafted another one to pair with Abdul Carter. And they have more than that, too. They have a bunch of guys on this defense. And I was largely invested in watching their defense and what they were going to be capable of last year. It was not, to the level that I thought it would be. But, with that being said, they were still pretty decent. It's not like they were a bottom barrel defense. Now, to name a team that I am high on that nobody's probably looking at and will be surprised by the outcome of them this year, I'm not saying necessarily that they will be a playoff team, but I think this team may have a lot of people looking at them. I gotta say, I mean, really, this one was actually designed for me to have a discussion with said guy that was going to be on the show with me today. I think that there's maybe two teams that may surprise people. I think the New Orleans Saints, if you did not pay attention and you're not a Saints fan, you're like listening to what I'm saying right now, you're probably like, oh, the NFC South? Oh, come on, man, that whole division is trash. And, for quite some time, it seems like whoever gets to 500 normally wins that division, with Tampa and Atlanta and Carolina and New Orleans. But New Orleans was only a game or two last year from winning their division. They had the rookie quarterback and Tyler Shuck and Kool-Aid McKinstry, the rookie at cornerback. But they do have a decent amount of talent on this roster. And they also have, a good backfield, a very good backfield now, getting Travis Etienne in the offseason. They also have one of the better young receivers, though a lot of times he's in concussion protocols, gotten hurt a lot. Hopefully that will not happen this year. But I think that's one of the two teams. I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team. I'm just saying I think that they're going to be largely improved to the point where people start looking at that team and going like, oh, wow. I still think that Tampa will probably wind up winning that division. If not Carolina. Carolina has made pretty big steps each of the last two seasons now. So, it may still be their division. I think between them and Tampa, though, that should be the winner of the division. But look at the Saints. Tell me I'm crazy, because I don't think I am. The other team is going to be from the AFC South, which has also looked like one of the worst divisions in football for a while. Jacksonville last year played great. Indy really should have been a playoff team had Daniel Jones not have gotten hurt, and who would have seen that coming, right? Going into last year. But I think the Tennessee Titans might be the other team that could wind up potentially surprising some people here. Now, ever since they changed the format, for the NFL playoffs, now there is an opportunity when it went from 6 teams to 7 teams making the playoff with 3 wildcard teams in both conferences. There is an opportunity that we have not seen yet, and I think there's only a matter of time before we may wind up seeing an entire division get into the postseason. So, a division that could potentially have the best chance for all teams to make the playoffs this upcoming year. I don't know, man. It's tough. It's tough the way that the divisions are right now. It seems like last year was like every team top to bottom, even the worst teams in the league, were, in my opinion, a lot more competitive than in recent years. So a couple of years ago, the AFC West was viewed as a division that could potentially have something like that happen. That was when the Denver Broncos, Bo Nix as a rookie, they got into the wild card round. So did the Chargers. The Chiefs obviously went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. But that year was the first year that they were really thinking about that, right? This year, if I really had to sit here and choose, so I would think maybe the NFC North, for the fact that you had the Lions go from potential Super Bowl favorites for the past couple of seasons. Last year, they did not make the playoffs, though they did have an over 500 record. I believe they were 8-9. I think they were, or 9-8. I mean, maybe they were 8-9. But so I think that they're going to be right back in the mix. You can't ignore the Green Bay Packers or the Chicago Bears after the seasons that they just had. So you have to think those 3 teams are going to definitely make the playoffs, right? And then lastly, you go back 2 years ago. Obviously, it was with Sam Darnold. The Minnesota Vikings only had 2 losses, had the most wins they've ever had as a franchise in one season, being 14 or 15. And now with Kyler Murray, I think if all goes well and Kyler can play at the level that I know he could play at and how he was in the beginning of his career before the injuries took place with the Cardinals, I think Minnesota could be right back in the mix. They still have a very good defense. They still have a lot of weapons. They've only added to the weapons in the offseason for Kyler in this offense. Obviously, Kevin O'Connell's offense has always been one of the better offenses in the league. He comes from a great tree of offensive systems. I think that would be the division that I would go with. Call me crazy, but if you think that you have a division that I did not say that could have 4 teams make it, you let me know. I mean, you can't really necessarily say the NFC West. You don't really know. Obviously, yes, Seattle just came from a Super Bowl. The Rams look like a Super Bowl favorite now with the addition of Myles Garrett. And still having Stafford only being 1 game away last year from a Super Bowl. And then San Francisco 49ers are pretty much relevant almost every year and find a way into the playoffs, except for once so far since Brock Purdy's been there. George Kittle is going to be healthy. But then you look at the Cardinals. Again, now, like last year, I was one of the people, probably one of the only people, that was advocating for Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. Trey McBride is the best tight end in football right now, the past 2 years, statistic-wise at least. And then, we've seen the emergence when they lost Marvin Harrison Jr., when he got hurt for a couple of weeks, Michael Wilson. So then obviously you have rookie running back, best running back in college football for the past 2 years now. Then they also have James Conner coming back. They got Tyler Algier in the offseason from Atlanta. The offensive line, I think that they kind of stabilized the offensive line now with what they got going on. I think their defense will be a little bit better than they were last year. They still have Budda Baker, who, in my opinion, should be like maybe a Hall of Famer by the end of his career. But they have Jacoby Brissett is going to be their quarterback. And, not to knock Jacoby, but I don't think that he has it within him to elevate a team like the Cardinals all the way to the postseason, especially when you're in a division like that. How many games will they really win in their division? Which would largely cost them probably any hopes of the playoffs. And behind him, they got Gardner Minshew. So even if they don't go with Jacoby Brissett, Gardner Minshew, he had a very good year when he was with the Colts. And then they got the kid out of Miami, Carson Beck. So I just think that would be too tough. And the rest of the landscape of the NFC, for the NFC West to have all 4 teams in there, I don't see that possible. So again, this is a what-if type of a scenario. But I would go with probably the NFC North. Now, we're going to get to my picks going forward with both the NBA and the NHL Finals. Yeah, so tonight I believe that the San Antonio Spurs are going to do it again at MSG in New York with all the bright lights on and with all the superstars and all the celebrities there. I think San Antonio, call me crazy, is not only going to win that game, I think it's going to go back to San Antonio. They're going to reclaim the home court advantage and win again in Game 5. And then Game 6, we could talk about that on the next episode. We got some time there. And then when you look at the NHL with the Stanley Cup, I actually did not update that graphic. I had Carolina winning last night, which they did, so I'm happy that happened. Did not know that they were going to go with Brandon Bussey, but it worked out perfectly for them and for me as my pick, obviously. Game 5, going back to Carolina, I believe that they will win again, reclaiming home ice. And Game 6, when it heads back to Vegas, however, on Sunday, I do have Vegas winning that one, and I believe it will go back to Carolina for a Game 7. So, yeah, guys, that's the episode. Those are my picks. Call me crazy. Leave me some comments if you're watching this or listening to this. Let me know what you think, how crazy I am, what I said about the NFL, the NHL, the NBA, and all my picks, the off-season stuff. And remember, you can always find Elite Sports Talk, Spotify, or anywhere else where podcasts can be found for audio only. When it comes to video, like I said, I live stream on Kick and Twitch, trying to figure out TikTok and YouTube in real time. And you can also view the episodes on YouTube and Rumble. Check out all my social media for Elite Sports Talk. And everybody and anybody that follows me on my Facebook page for Elite Sports Talk, I appreciate all of you guys, and IG and TikTok. But specifically with Facebook, I am now over 500,000 viewership in the last 90 days. That may not sound great for some people that do this all the time, but for me, that is a huge milestone. I did not think that this was going to happen when I started, but I appreciate all of you, and let's stay locked in. We got football around the corner. Still got a couple more games for both NHL and NBA. It's going to be a wild offseason for both of those sports. We got WNBA in play right now. And I'll see you guys hopefully in the next couple of days. And hopefully, if everything works out perfectly, I'm going to have somebody on the show with me for once. And that's all I got, guys. Let's enjoy sports, man. Let's enjoy life. And thank you so much. Your viewership means the world to me. Appreciate it.